Hello, friends. We are about to listen to a talk that was given on May 17th, 2020. It's during the COVID-19 pandemic. And on the morning of the talk, there happened to be an international Zoom crash. So that caused a lot of technical difficulties. Many of us weren't able to hear or to see parts of the talk, parts of the day of mindfulness together. So we're now sharing this talk as an opportunity for you to listen more clearly. And we were able to save most of the talk, but the first little bit was lost. So I'm going to recap how the talk started. And so I'll talk for just a few minutes, and then it's going to cut right into the recorded Dharma talk from that day. And we can begin by listening to 3 sounds of the bell together. Settling into ourselves, into our bodies, coming home to ourselves in this moment. So last week my daughter was working on a homework assignment, and the assignment was to take a backpack and imagine she was going out into the wilderness. This is for a nature awareness class. And think about what she might need to spend the night out there. She had to imagine into it. You know, what would it be like if she didn't have her normal home and things? What would be the essentials that she would need? And that was really fun to watch her doing that, seeing what she put in her backpack. And I was thinking that it's a little bit like us right now. We are on a journey. It's a very unknown journey to us. We don't have a lot of the normal resources, the normal supports. Comforts. And it's brought up a lot of challenges and suffering in many of us. It's not easy. And so I asked this question for this journey that we're on together. What are the, if I were to make a backpack, kind of a Dharma survival backpack, what are the some of the helpful practices that I would put in my backpack to support me at this time. What are some of the teachings that can really help us to support us to take good care of ourselves, to have resources for well-being, for healing, for happiness? So we decided to use this idea of our Dharma survival backpack for our talk today, and we're going to play with that a little bit. So we packed it up and we will unpack it throughout the talk. I hope you enjoy this talk. We'll listen to one more sound of the bell and then start the recorded talk.
Moment has so much to offer. And so if we know how to make our way, to find that path, that map back to the present moment, then we can succeed in not being overwhelmed, not being carried away by the suffering and the complexity of the situation that we are in. Our conscious breathing, our mindful breathing is that road, it's that path. And put it back in the pack and make sure it stays there. Our conscious breathing happens right in the middle of our body, and we bring our awareness, our mind, into the middle of our body when we practice conscious breathing. And by doing so, we are coming back to the experience that we're having right here and now, right? Our mind is no longer worried about or trying to figure out things that are outside and around. It's now turned, focused, attending to what's happening right in the very heart of us. And through the breath, we follow the breath in, right? We get a chance to connect with the experience we're having right inside ourselves in this moment. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in, and I'm coming home to myself while I do that. And breathing out, we can notice in the out breath the gesture of release and letting go. And so anything that we don't need to be holding on to in this moment, which might be the anxiety, the worry, it might be the sadness, we can exhale and release a little bit of that with that exhale. And the natural gesture of the breath has this gathering in and collecting in the in-breath, and that release and letting go in the out-breath. And we can use that natural gesture to help us in our body and in our mind, right? To become tuned in to right where we are and to release the things that we don't need, right? So our conscious breathing helps us to move towards the experience of the present moment. We come home to ourselves, and as we come home to ourselves, the experience of life that we're having is there. And so we are coming home to life. And those are wonderful words of our teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. When we practice conscious breathing, coming home to ourselves, we also come home to life. Sometimes it's quite shocking to realize that we haven't really been alive, figuratively, right? That we've been so distracted by things in our mind that we're not actually connecting to the experience of life that we're having. But we unify the different parts of ourselves, our thinking, our feeling, our bodily experience, all come together through conscious breathing. Breathing in, I'm aware of the in-breath, gathering myself in. Breathing out, I'm aware of the out-breath, releasing and letting go. And settling in that way, I can begin the healing. That integration of the different parts of me is the first step in the healing the transformation. So the sense of separation and dispersion and overwhelm immediately begins to change because of that simple act of bringing the attention through the breath into the moment. And here I am alive, breathing in, smiling in my life, breathing out. So I'd like to offer you a quick little walkthrough of a couple of different breathing meditations that I use a lot. And this is part of, for me, definitely part of my roadmap, my map into the present moment and into the experience of both finding nourishment in the present moment, but also the beginnings of healing in that process. So that first breath is a breathing in and out and really tuning into the body. So breathing in, I am aware of my whole body and I fill my whole body with awareness. And it's as if I have a kind of a light inside me that radiates out and can touch from my lungs and from the core, the trunk, the heart and belly of my body, spreads out through all the cells of my body. The light of a candle's flame is like that, the way it moves and it spreads out and it touches all the cells of the body. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body, and breathing out, I relax my whole body. In, aware of my body, out, relaxing my body. Every cell receives the presence and the life-giving energy of the air and of awareness. And every cell releases all it doesn't need. And my next breath is the same gesture, but for my mind. Because the mind is always running, jumping, striving, wanting to figure out and understand. And so I recognize that my mind and its activity is going, and I reach up to it with my awareness and I invite it back by breathing in, aware of the activity of my mind, this mental activity and perhaps even agitation, aware of my mind running. And with an invitation of the breath to release and let go, I invite my mind to calm. Breathing in, aware of thinking, mental activity. Breathing out, inviting calm, inviting ease. Aware of the mind and calming the mind. And the third breathing is to become aware of how wonderful it is to be able to be aware and to relax and to calm and invite ease. There's a deep enjoyment in the release of tension in my body. And I really want to celebrate that. So breathing in, I feel my whole body, and breathing out, relaxing. I enjoy that. Breathing in, I sense enjoyment. Breathing out, I experience joy, the joy of letting go of stress and tension. And as I settle in the experience of being present in this present moment, my eyes, they take in the beauty and the wonder of life, and I can enjoy that. I enjoy what I see, breathing in, enjoying, breathing out, experiencing joy. My ears hear, my nose and my tongue smell and taste. My body feels the softness of the cushion. I smell the freshness of the air, the scent of incense. All of these things can be wonders of life that I allow myself to enjoy. The colors, the shapes, the beauty of the world around me. Breathing in, enjoying, breathing out, enjoying. And as that settling and that calming goes to another layer, goes deeper and deeper every breath or two, the sense of joy deepens and it becomes what I would call happiness, where there's a kind of contentment, um, a, a sense of fulfillment and wholeness, a sense of peace and well-being, which can come about by really, really settling into the present moment. And so I'd like to nourish my awareness that I can touch happiness. As I settle deeper and my body really calms, as my agitation and my anxiety and my worry and my sadness and my fear, as they all begin to settle down, I am deeply at ease. And I find myself at home in life, breathing in. I am aware of this moment as a possibility for me to be happy. Breathing out, I experience happiness. And as joy deepens into contentment and fulfillment and happiness and peace, I experience that. Breathing in, happy. Breathing out, happy. When we are able to be really present like this, our capacity for nourishing ourselves is awakened. Our capacity for attending to the world around us and participating in a beautiful and wholesome way is awakened because we feel that solidity, that spaciousness, that ease, that happiness of being a part of life. And that's what comes from the present moment. And we have this wonderful tool of conscious breathing as a map to bring us into that realm of deep nourishment, but also opening the door to connection and healing with ourselves and with others around us. Instead of being pushed and pulled by anxiety and fear, by restlessness, by neediness, by having to get somewhere, right? Instead of being moved by those forces in us, we awaken our peacefulness, our presence, our compassion, and we come from those places instead. It's a remarkable and powerful transformation. I'd like to sing for you the Bell Gatha. They speak so beautifully of this practice, and they use the celebration of the sound of the bell to allow us to send our presence and our wishes for well-being and our happiness out into the world around us using the sound of the bell. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers waken from forgetfulness and transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow. I listen, and this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. May the sound of the bell reach deeply into the cosmos. In even the darkest places, may beings hear it clearly, so that understanding lights up their heart. They may realize awakening and find their way home. I listen, I listen. I feel my afflictions begin to dissolve. My mind calm, my body relax. A smile is born upon my lips. Following the sound of the bell, my breath guides me back to the safe island of mindfulness. In the garden of my heart, a flower of peace blooms. Beautiful peace. We see what else is in the backpack now.
Looks like we have a blanket to keep us warm. That's our loving kindness. Blanket of metta. That we can wrap around ourselves. There have been moments, especially early on and still sometimes, where I'm not feeling well since we've been practicing social distancing, and it was a new feeling for me, a feeling of unsettledness and kind of anxiety. I think it came a lot from just so many changes, so much unknown, not having a schedule in the work, having the children home all day. And for myself, I know if I'm If I notice I'm not feeling well, it can be a kind of a subtle feeling in my body, in my heart, or sometimes it manifests as craving. That craving for me is a sign that I'm suffering. I'm suffering somewhere inside and I'm trying to get away from it. So if I am doing something and suddenly I really feel like I need to go find that box of cookies I know we bought, so packed away somewhere in the closet, and then that feeling keeps pushing me. I know what it actually means is I'm suffering, and I've created a practice for myself, which I call couch meditation. I've shared that with some of you before. So when I'm feeling this dis-ease, uncomfort, or craving, I make myself go sit on the couch before I go and get cookies, or before I do anything else. Because I've discovered what I really need in that moment when I'm thinking that I need something outside to make me feel better is my own presence. There's a little child inside of me that's hurting, and she's really longing for me to listen to her, to be with her, to notice what's really going on inside. So I make myself sit on the couch and just sit there. And sometimes when I first sit down, I want to jump right up again. I make myself sit there and stay there. And I do the practice very similar to what Michael just guided us through. Coming back, I bring my mind into my body. I let go of everything else and I listen. I listen inside and find out what's there. I ask myself, is there something you want to tell me? Something I need to hear? I ask myself, I can see you, I feel you, my suffering, I know you're there, I'm hurting. Is there something that happened I can find that's caused this feeling of suffering? And this happened just the other day. I noticed I was suffering, and so I sat down to listen what was there. And I was looking back, because often I can look back and I can see a moment when this feeling started to grow in me in the day. And I looked back and I found it. It was in the morning, and I was looking at my phone, and this video popped up about, it was like some kind of imagery of a man's lung that had filled up, someone who had coronavirus. And you could see that where it was in his lung. And I had not thought too much of it. I put my phone down and I went, okay. But this feeling of fear and suffering started to grow in. I have asthma. I've been in the hospital because my lungs wouldn't let air come in. And I have my 92-year-old grandmother living next door. So this image touched the seeds of fear. And that was just kind of growing underneath. So I come back and I listen, I see what's the nature of my suffering, and then I wrap it in my loving kindness. My dear pain, I know you're there, and I can be here for you. I love you. I'm going to take care of you, like a little baby. And I allow the warmth of my own love and of my presence to fill that space of pain, to fill my whole body, mind. I send it to all the cells in my body. And I allow the healing to happen. I think deep inside we really long for our own presence, for our own love. And it's an amazing gift. Especially right now, we can't always find that love from people outside of us. So it's a really powerful tool we can have. Just sit and offer that compassion, that loving kindness to our own body, our own heart. And it's the most satisfying kind of love. I think we're taught to look outside all the time, to be happy, to find our happiness, find our love. But as a nun, I was taught not to look for anything outside, to lean on those things outside to find my real happiness, because you're very vulnerable if you're leaning always outside, because those conditions are changing all the time, and leaning and looking outside, they create a kind of a craving in you. Because even like myself, I have a wonderful partner and many Sangha friends, and I trained a lot in the monastery not to look to my partner, my friend, for that source of well-being. And even now, I get to see him every day, but that doesn't mean he's gonna meet my needs perfectly. And it creates a challenging dynamic if I'm wanting him to do that. So even if we're lucky enough to have a partner, that's not the deepest and the most stable source of our well-being. Of course, we can enjoy that, but what we really need is our own presence, our own loving kindness. And if we find that, we don't have to lean so much outside on others, and we can enjoy our presence with more freedom. Happiness, I've learned, is the state of being that we allow ourselves to experience. It's not something we can chase after and get. It's quite simple, really. It happens when we stop looking for something that's going to make us happy. The TV show later tonight, or the meeting next week, or finishing building our house next month. If we keep thinking when these things happen, when there's no longer coronavirus, whatever it is, we tend to imagine happiness is going to come when some condition in the future happens. And we just keep moving, thinking that we're going to get that, and maybe we happen to get that sometimes in our daily life. But actually, we can find it as soon as we recognize that we just need to stop looking for it in the future and let ourselves have it. It's hard to feel really happy and at peace when we are feeling inside craving, grasping. But when we let go of that grasp, let go, thinking we need anything else, then we can just settle into the happiness and the freedom, well-being of this moment of our life. Looking in the backpack. It says, there's a little book here, and it says, A Guide to a Better Way to Live Alone. Many of us may be living alone lately. This is a teaching actually offered by the Buddha, so we thought that we would look into that. And it seems that it is a chant, actually. So I think I'll hand this one to you.
Sure.
I'm sure.
Listen, I will teach you what is man by knowing the better way to live alone. Do not pursue the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. The past no longer is, and the future has not yet come. Oh, look deeply at life just as it is, arising in the very here and now. Recognize it, invincible, unshakable. Care for it with your heart and with your mind. We must be diligent today. To wait till tomorrow is too late, for death comes unexpectedly. And how can we bargain with it? The sage calls one who knows how to dwell in mindfulness night and day. The one who knows the better way to live alone.
Thank you. Death comes unexpectedly. This we already knew. Coronavirus comes unexpectedly. Our life is such a precious gift. We don't want to miss it. We want to make it count. The Buddha invites us to do that. To be truly alive in our life. To be truly alive in this moment. And to be truly alive with our loved ones. We can use our blanket of loving kindness to wrap around our loved ones. I like to begin loving the people I'm close to in my life, my family, people I work with, my friends, in my meditation. Because I can see them more clearly sometimes, more deeply when I'm quiet. So while I'm sitting, I bring them to my meditation. I'll think of my daughter. I'll picture her. I'll see her laughing. I'll see her when she's really at ease in herself. I'll notice all the things that I appreciate about her. And I'll notice her suffering as well. And hold that, see that more clearly. And then I send her my loving kindness. I send her all my love. May she be happy and safe. So I will go through the people I'm close to on a regular basis every couple of weeks if I do this practice. And it keeps my love for them really fresh and alive. It's very easy to start to forget to notice how amazing and beautiful the people around us are. And we can miss them. Live next to them, but miss them. Miss the miracle that they are. Especially at this moment. We need to support each other if we can. It's a wonderful time to write letters. The other day, I woke up out of a dream. And in my dream, I was dreaming about my stepfather that I lived with a lot in my childhood with my mom and him. And I was crying. I woke up, I was actually crying because I missed him. I haven't spent much time with him since I was at home. because my mom and my stepfather separated after I went away to college, and I've been busy. And I didn't notice that there was something incomplete there, but it came out in my dream that I missed him, that I loved him. So I took that opportunity to write him a letter, to reach out to him and to let him know how influential he has been in my life, how much I loved him when I was growing up, that he's alive in me now. He was a big project manager, so I think he's also alive in MorningSun because I saw him create these places, and I think that's given me some of my courage to imagine we could create this residential community here with all its challenges. So still very connected. So I had a chance to write that to him. And even if someone's passed away, I'll do this practice with them, write them a letter or meditate with them. Our dear sister Annie, who lived in MorningSun, helped to grow MorningSun, she passed away about a year and a half ago, and I still miss her sometimes. There's a little ache of missing her comes up in my heart. And I like to go out into the forest, and I bring her up, just like I do in the other meditation. Think of all of I imagine her walking down the path. She often wore a sundress and then these big black muffs. She tripped lightly down the path here at MorningSun. She was very playful and joyful and very, very courageous and strong. So I just sit with her and I let her come to life. And I send her all my gratitude and my love for who she is. And I feel the joy of her life. And I bring some healing to the sorrow of me. I feel very close to her then and feel her around me. And then I invite her to continue to live in me. I think of the qualities I love so much about her, and I invite them to continue in my life, in my way as well. And we can send this our loving kindness, our compassion, in fact, to the whole world. Every person in the world is so precious. Our earth is so precious. I'd like to invite us to do this short metta meditation right now together. We can bring our awareness back into our body. We know that right now there are many people who are suffering. Maybe we are also one of the people. People who are afraid people who are sick, people who have despair and loneliness, people who are working so hard and exhausted, people who have lost loved ones. Every one of us is precious and beautiful. May all beings and may the earth be healthy. May all beings and the earth be safe. May all beings and the earth find healing. May all beings and the earth be free of fear. May all beings and the earth know happiness and peace. May we and all beings and the earth feel love. Thank you, dear friends, for practicing together. This kind of practice has so many benefits. Actually, I was reading one of the writings of the Buddha, and there's this long list of benefits. But what I noticed is it really opens my heart, and it helps me to feel connected. It heals my feeling of separation, and it gives me energy to then reach out. I think we need to think about taking care of each other at this time, and that helps people we care for, but it also helps us to heal some of the loneliness we have, because other people and the earth and ourselves, we're not really separate. We're all part of the same life. And we can find the little ways by making donations or taking care to protect others or writing letters. Yeah, find a way to have big arms around the earth, supporting each other. caring for each other. Michael's going to see what else is in the backpack here.
Yeah, this is a first aid kit. It says first aid for ailments based on ideas of a separate self, such as loneliness, fear, and craving. I'm very curious. What might this be? Sunglasses. Oh, aha. It's time to look deeply. This is the eyes of interbeing. I don't know if you can see that, the eyes of interbeing across there. I don't know if I'm going to wear this while we practice, but I'm thinking about it. I've never given a Dharma talk with sunglasses on before. All right. Special times call for special measures. The eyes of interbeing. Oh, how marvelous. Yes. The eyes of interbeing are a real treasure. I gotta take them off. Okay, this is how I used to do it when I was younger. Put them right there. Over my heart. The eyes of interbeing are an incredibly powerful and meaningful practice. One that truly can heal us in these ailments. And yes, specifically the ailment of the idea of separation and separate self. Although it's also important to note that when we're using the eyes of interbeing, we're actually not looking for oneness. It's easy to get caught in an idea of becoming one with everything. Right?
Yeah.
Caught in an idea of becoming one with everything.
Oh, you're not talking, yeah. I've seen people talking. Okay.
So when we look with eyes of interbeing, we do transcend the boundary between what appears to be separate entities. But it doesn't mean we become one big mush, smush all together. There's a beautiful flower here. And the flower looks to be like an entity on its own. It appears to be an object which I am holding in my hand, which is separate from me. And perhaps you can even think that it's separate from you. There's some distance between us, a small distance between myself and the flower, and maybe a larger, longer distance between you and this flower. But we're going to do a little magic and see if we can look deeply into the true nature of this flower and overcome the idea of separation. So when I first look at the flower and I want to use the eyes of interbeing, I need to establish a relationship with it. Because to use the eyes of interbeing is not an intellectual exercise. It's not a matter of figuring out a formula of interconnections and, you know, a network of ideas. We have to go beyond the idea. We can use our ideas, our very clever thoughts, to get deeper in touch with the flower. But we have to do it in a careful way so that we don't run around in our mind, establishing some complex theory of how things work. Instead, we use the thoughts, the guiding thoughts of interbeing to help us open our heart and experience what's there.
We were chatting through that whole thing. Yeah, I don't know why you want to use it.
It's okay. While breathing in and breathing out, I am established in my body, present. And in my hands, as an object of my perception, is the flower. You too can practice to be in and out in your body and take the flower up as an object of your perception. And we ask the flower, dear flower, what are you made of? Where do you come from? Where are you going? And questions like that, they sound a little bit like philosophy or poetry, but they actually are there as an invitation to our eyes of interbeing. And at first the mind offers some interesting responses. What are you made of? Oh, there's pink and green color. So I've got this flower is made of pink and green color. It has pretty curves and points on its petals and its leaves. Right? And those are the kinds of thoughts that come up, right, at first. And so what I do is I allow that thought of the color, the shade of pink, that I might have a name for, or maybe I don't. I just call it pink or rose, right? I just use that word and then I breathe with it. What does that word feel like? What does it mean inside me? What kind of resonance does that have? And I breathe that in and out. It is a pink color. And the green and the shape of the green leaf, the curve and the gesture of it. I let that shape and that color enter into me and I feel, what are they like? What is it like to be shaped like that? To be colored like that? So I'm beginning to invite a dimension to my thoughts, which is experiential, beyond concept. And as we ask those questions further, where do you come from? What are you made of, dear flower? We might say something like, classic, right? Sun. The sun is in the flower. Okay, so if the sun shines in the flower as an idea I have, right? Let me turn that into a little bit of an experience. Breathing in and out. Imagine yourself this flower in the spring sunshine. Imagine what it's like to be as you breathe in and out, shaped like this flower, colored like this flower, opening your petals, like this flower and receiving the warmth and light of the sun. And you know in that moment, you know beyond just your idea, you know in your cells, in your feeling sense that sunshine and flower are together. Right? We might think that there's the soil of the earth in the flower, and the carbon in the atmosphere, the biosphere, and its roots have drawn up nutrients, drawn it up out of the soil and formed the leaf and the stem and the petals. Well, breathe with that thought. Feel what it's like to draw up through roots nutrients out of the earth to shape the fibers and the tissues of your body with minerals from the earth. And as you think those thoughts and allow with your breath some space and meaning to take shape inside of what those thoughts are all about, what is their experience, you drop a little bit out of the intellect and into the feeling like what it is to be the flower. And it's very interesting because as we discover how much the earth and its minerals are a part of the flower and how much the sun is a part of the flowers together in the flower, it's not just an imagination we're having because we too are also made of the minerals of the earth. We don't absorb them in exactly the same way that the flower does, but they are the same mineral. We too are made of the sun. We have its warmth and light in us. We know what it's like to be nourished by it. We know we cannot exist without it. And we don't absorb it and transform it into energy the same way that the flower does, but it is the same sun. We are children of the earth together with the flower, or children of the sun. These are thoughts of interbeing, eyes of interbeing. We are looking in to touch the interbeing nature of the flower, how the flower and the sun cannot be apart from each other, how the flower and the earth cannot be apart from each other. And as we touch the interbeing of the flower, using those eyes of interbeing, we touch our own. The not separate self nature of the flower is revealed in our heart. Simultaneously, our own not separate self is revealed. We are a continuation of the cosmos, just as the flower. How wonderful. How wonderful. David led us in a meditation earlier this morning that perhaps some of you weren't able to hear. It was a sitting meditation, so there wasn't a lot to see. Don't worry if the video didn't work. But in that meditation, he guided us through a similar way of looking. In fact, he was using the eyes of interbeing too. Although the glasses were in the first aid kit, I'm not quite sure how he did it. But he asked us to contemplate the earth element and the water element and the air element and the fire warmth element and space, right? And consciousness. And he looked with those eyes of interbeing at each of those elements. We saw the earth element inside of us and the earth element all around, and we could see that they are the same element. In fact, there are no boundaries between the earth element in us and the earth element all around. It's one continuum. And yet we somehow isolate ourselves and believe ourselves to be separate. We look into the water element and we see the water in our body, the blood in our veins, and we see the water in the atmosphere and in the blood of all the creatures around us. And we know that it is one and the same element of water. And yet somehow we feel so separate. When I look with eyes of interbeing, I see that as I breathe in the air, I absorb into my body molecules of oxygen, and they become part of my blood. Now, just 5 seconds ago, they existed in the air out here, and now they're part of my blood. What could be more me than my blood, right? That's such a self thing when we think of my blood, right? But in the blood in my body is my blood. But just a moment before, it belonged to everyone as air, right? We see the no boundary, the non-separation between us and the world. And as we use those thoughts, and if we allow our mind to soften into those thoughts and to give time and space for those thoughts so we can feel and experience them, we drop into that experience of interbeing. And we feel connected. We feel at home in life. We feel a part of this miracle of life. David asked us to look at consciousness and the element of consciousness. And when we look at our consciousness, it's so easy, right, to see the presence of our family, our friends, our mentors, authors who we've read, and their consciousness now as part of our consciousness, teachers in universities and schools, parents in the way that they raised us, grandparents and great-grandparents, and a whole stream of ancestors before us whose consciousness has shaped and become our own. There is no separation. And if I take those thoughts and I open my heart and my mind with that loving kindness blanket and I welcome it all in with conscious breathing, the eyes of interbeing open me to a deep and powerful part of myself where I'm free, free from isolation, free from separation, free from loneliness, free from disconnection, free from the need to think of failure and success, and to be driven by restlessness and frustrations and such. Because as I drop in with eyes of interbeing into my deeper nature, into my deeper home, my true home, the whole cosmos has come together in this moment to offer this one brilliant moment of life. What more could you possibly want? All of our ancestors have helped to shape this experience that we're having in this moment, right? Have brought us to this place where we are. You can't take any one of them out. If you do, you disappear, right? All of our ancestors are here. All of the world and its evolution, generation to generation, have brought us to this place. Is there somewhere else you'd like to go? Right? The mind may think, oh yeah, there's something better over here. And Fern just spoke so beautifully about that. We come home to ourselves and we wrap this loving, relaxing awareness around, and we use our eyes of interbeing and open the door. Open the door to our freedom, to our stability, to our compassion. There's an energy that lives in all of us. It's an energy of not okayness. Something's not right. Something's not okay. We've been cast out of the garden, right? And there's something askew, something wrong. We have to change it. We're not quite. There's always something else. There's a kind of a restlessness and an unease that lies in all of our hearts and minds. And we're driven by that deep habit energy to always seek and look and go somewhere else, change it. And sometimes it's a really horrible moment that we're in that we have to change. And other, it's like there's nothing happening at all, but it's still not okay. Right? That kind of energy we hold in our mindfulness, and we use the eyes of interbeing to look into our true moment, the moment we are having. And we can release the fear. We can release the restlessness. We can release the dis-ease. Breathing in, I am aware of my interbeing. Breathing out, I release the craving. the longing, the dis-ease. Breathing in, I am aware how all the cosmos is transforming into this moment. There's nothing for me to hold on to. Breathing out, I let it go. When you can see impermanent, things changing. When you can see no beginning and no end, continuation, right? You can open your heart and mind and release all the suffering that is there. At the beginning of the prelude to the 5 mindfulness training, there is a sentence which says something like, these trainings are an expression of interbeing which can remove all suffering, discrimination, and fear. It's a very bold statement. This practice can remove all suffering from discrimination, fear, etc. Those are not idle words just there to like to make a big advertisement and say, this is the best, so come buy it. The Dharma isn't interested in being sold, right? So this is an expression of the power that lies inside our own eyes of interbeing and how they can unlock the door to our heart to real freedom and compassion. When my grandmother passed away, I did not experience any loss. And it was a surprise to me. And it was only afterward that I realized the fruits of the practice. For I had, over several years, been in conversation with her and practiced actively with her to look deeply with eyes of interbeing, to see her no beginning, no end nature, to see her before she was born, to see her continuation in me and in other family members and out in the world, and to experience those things. And so when her body died, as we say, right, I didn't experience a loss because she was already alive in me and in the world in other ways. That was a fruit of my practice of deep looking. I expected to feel very sad because I have been close to her most of my life and learned so many wonderful things from her. But I didn't. In fact, I was able to let go of the idea that she just lived in Somerset, Pennsylvania, and she was so far away. Now, once I let go of that idea, I could find her everywhere. I still can find her everywhere. She's so alive for me. My separation between she and I was dissolved through the practice of deep looking, eyes of interbeing. The same way we looked at the flower, the same way we can look at ourselves and at our friends and family. Now, when my brother-in-law, when he died young. He was killed traveling in Central America and in the wrong place at the wrong time. That caught me by surprise. When my grandma died, she was in her 90s, and that was expected, right? But my brother was in his mid-30s, and that was unexpected. And it caught us all by surprise. And when I heard the news, I suffered a lot. I suffered for his son, my nephew, and my sister, and for myself and other family members. That didn't stop me from practicing, but I was surprised I had not looked into my brother's no beginning, no end nature. I hadn't looked into him with eyes of interbeing yet. But I began that practice after I wept, after I cried and felt that I had lost something, that my family had lost something, that my nephew had lost his father. That was the biggest ache for me. But I practiced to look deeply. I practiced to look into him, to see all the conditions that brought him into the world, and to see all the ways that he still continued to live on in the world, and especially in my nephew, and in me, and in my sister, and in other family members around who knew him. We had his continuation printed in us, just as the flower carries the print of the sun. You can't take it out. It's there. It's alive. And if you look deeply, you can find the sun in the flower. And I found the Father in the Son when I looked at my nephew. And this opened my heart. And although I may still miss him, right, and wish that it might have been different, and those thoughts cause me to suffer, I have other thoughts too, which bring me great joy and bring me stability. And those thoughts are the thoughts that come with eyes of interbeing. When I look deeply into my brother, I see his Mayan ancestors, and I become filled with their life, and I'm proud, and I feel strong and stable. And when I see my nephew, I see him too. And all the different virtues and characteristics and sometimes suffering that he carried in the world, I can see them too, in me and in my family and in my nephew. And so I see his no beginning, no end nature by using the eye to intervene. And I'm freed from the suffering of separation, of loss. Dear friends, please make use of these meditations. Drop down out of your intellectual grasp of what it is to be alive or dead, or what it is to be healthy or sick. Drop into your interbeing nature to find your stability and your freedom. They are precious gifts offered to us. First aid for ailments based on ideas of a separate self. It's right here. Fern, would you like these glasses? I'm gonna keep them.
Hi friends, thank you so much for practicing together this morning. And I'll see you later. Now I think David is going to share a little bit with us.
So, dear Sangha, so in a few minutes we're going to be breaking for walking meditation and mindful eating. So we'll have lunch and we'll be offline. And so I know that we'll also have Dharma sharing this afternoon, followed by a deep relaxation. We'll have deep relaxation and then Dharma sharing, right? And so I know that some people may be leaving after lunch. They may not come back this afternoon, even though I know most people will. So I just wanted to take this moment to offer gratitude towards our teachers, towards Michael and Fern, for sharing, sharing their consciousness with us, seeing the consciousness flow from their hearts into ours, and just wanted to invite people to, if they would like to, offer their support as a practice of dana for our teachers, for Michael and Fern. So I'm just going to share a few words about this. So not many people know, but the livelihood of being a full-time Dharma teacher like Michael and Fern, they're offering things for free all the time, and that's their own practice of dana, of generosity. they've received so much from Thai. They spent many years in the monastery, and they've let these teachings really soak so deeply into their bones, into their blood, and into their minds as we've been receiving. And they're committed. They're dedicated to continuing these teachings forward. And we also have an opportunity to support that. So what we're receiving today, we're receiving for free. We're receiving as a gift from them and from our ancestral teachers, from other people who have supported their livelihood so that they can continue to share these practices and these teachings while also caring for their family. And now we have an opportunity, if we wish to, offer our support to the Dharma through their livelihood so they continue sharing the practice through days of mindfulness like this, through retreats. And there's so many things I see them doing that aren't, they're not compensated. It's quite alternative livelihood. If you can imagine raising a couple of teenagers and, 3 children, a family of 5, and just relying upon the generosity of Sangha. For me, I would find that quite kind of scary. But luckily we have a real depth of love from them and from the Sangha, and we trust, so we're inviting the Sangha to express their support for the teachings to keep flowing to many practitioners into the future. And so that'll be our gift towards future generations to receive the practice.